Welcome to my American History Notes, where I discuss my conclusions that I've drawn from American history, from studying it, um, reading trusted historians, following up their leads on primary sources, journals, letters, laws, things like newspaper accounts, things like that, that would give us some insight into American history. I'm not expecting anybody to believe my conclusions or accept my conclusions that I draw, but I do expect you to learn about the events and people I talk about so that you have your own opinions. And I welcome any comments. I'm not going to be argumentative. It's great if you have your own view, as long as you've studied it yourself, not just copying somebody else. Um, so we'll begin. We're going to talk about efforts to convert the Native American, the American Indian, the Amerindian, all kinds of ways they are described. But you're going to read a lot when I use the word Indian, not to be offensive, but because you're going to see that referred to a lot in your American history when you're looking at documents. Okay. Of course, there's other worse names like savages, brutes, things like that. But we're talking about something that's a little bit less offensive than that. So these people who lived here before we got here, before the European got here, who we conquered this continent from, are important to note and to know about. Okay, I don't think you can understand American history if you don't understand the people that were here first before us. So let's talk about them today. The charters of the New England colonies had the goal of converting the Indians written into them. The Massachusetts Bay logo contained a drawing of an Indian. The Confederation of the Massachusetts Bay, the Plymouth, New Haven, and Connecticut colonies called for the spread of Christianity. Missionary John Eliot translated the Bible into Indian language and founded the first Native American Christian congregation in 1651 at Natwick, Massachusetts, but it dwindled away after his death. David Brainerd converted a great many Indians to Christianity. John Sargent translated part of the Bible in Mohicano. He created a school which taught both boys and girls of the Indian tribes. A collection taken up in England and Wales for the quote civilization of the Indians took an average of 500 to 600 pounds sterling yearly, a large sum which financed many churches. The missionaries were not typically known for learning in the Indian languages, but often spoke through an interpreter. Protestant Indian congregations usually did not outlive the death of the missionary. So Catholic missionaries, excuse me, were much more successful due to the organization of the Roman Catholic Church and the satisfaction of the church hierarchy with nominal outward obedience to form and the authority of the church rather than an inward conversion. Sprinkling water on someone and saying that now they were born again was an entirely different thing than a person having a strong inward change in their life through belief in genuine faith. Much of the problem that the missionaries had in the North American English colonies as around the world was based on their assumption that not only was the Bible true, but that their culture and lifestyle best reflected the biblical ideal, which was often an absurd proposition. Indians who might have been positively influenced by the preaching of the gospel just as often were unimpressed with the dress, mannerisms, lack of cleanliness and sanitation, and tendency to corporate violence of the European. That being said, we shouldn't let ourselves develop some idyllic view of the Native Americans as a naive savage who was incapable of deceit and treachery. Indian chiefs and authority often were able to be bribed and many times sought out their own best interests rather than the best interests of their people. The Native American inhabitants of North America were human beings with the same capacity for guile, goodness, treachery, and gullibility as the Europeans who conquered them. Now, we're going to leave off with the Native Americans now, and we're going to start a discussion about slavery next. Very important. You can't understand American history unless you know African American history. I'm telling you, it's extremely important, and conservatives, to their great shame and discredit, have discounted the history of slavery and racial oppression too much. And that's why this Marxist critical theory is being taught. That's why it's possible that it could come out. We'll discuss that more later. We need to address this issue in our heads and to know about it and to know the seriousness of it and not this stupid, oh, people treated slaves very nicely and it was a great life, horse crap. So we're going to get into slavery next time, and I look forward to talking to you again. And I hope you look up some of this stuff and come to your own conclusions doing your own studies.